Welcome here. So does this question type look familiar? This question type showing on my screen right now. Yes, it should look familiar. It is called the classifying information question type on the IELTS reading section. It doesn't frequently occur though, but then it's important whenever it does occur, you handle it confidently. So today we're going to be learning how to properly handle this question type. Now, the trap many students have fallen into over time is that they deal with this question type as they would typically deal with the other question types. What do I mean? So we tend to have these questions and we think we're supposed to look for the keywords on each of the question in accordance with the passage. So we're looking for number 14, as you have here, for instance. You're looking for number 14, you're looking at the top of the paragraph, expecting to see your answer there, and you expect that number 15 should come after. It doesn't work that way on the classifying information question type. Right. So this question type would typically come with options A, B, C, each of which represents a concept, often a scientific term. Right? A represents a term, B represents a term, C represents a term. And underneath those terms, you tend to have questions. Now, all the questions are a rephrase of the characteristics belonging to each of the terms. Hope that makes sense. Yes. You have underneath, the questions are rephrased information of the characteristics belonging to any of the terms. Now, considering that you have three terms, three options to pick from, it goes to mean that you can have one option factor more than once. So it is possible, for instance, to have option A be the answer for number 14, 16, and 17, but not in an orderly fashion. Yes, you don't expect to see all the answers pertaining to option A for number 14, 15, 16 in the same paragraph. Now, how do you handle this question? In the first place, you want to take a scan of all the keywords on each of the questions. And by keywords, I mean the subject, the verb, and the complementary part of the sentence, or the subject, the verb, and the object of each of the sentences you have on the questions, right? As well as take note of the options, the scientific terms you're dealing with. Right? So master this thing. Take some time, take about 1 to 2 minutes to memorize these keywords. And beautifully, so the IELTS computer-based version gives you the opportunity to highlight. So you could highlight those keywords as you look at your passage. Now, the next thing you want to do, take one paragraph at a time, because you would often find that one paragraph tends to treat one of the concepts. So you have one paragraph discussing one of the concepts, in detail, right? So what you want to do is read that paragraph and get out all the key information pertaining to that concept, all the characteristics, all the features pertaining to that concept in that paragraph. Yes, so highlight all the new details you have. Sometimes you have a bulky paragraph that contains a particular feature accompanied by explanation or supporting detail to explain that feature. What you're supposed to highlight are the features, the new points you see pertaining to that question type. Now, what else do? You want to move right into your questions and look for synonyms. Look for the options, right? The questions that you can attach to that concept and explained in that paragraph. And like I said earlier, you typically find more than one characteristic belonging to one answer, right? After doing this, you repeat the process with the subsequent paragraphs. I will take that again. You read, get your key points from each of the questions you have, then move into the paragraph to highlight the key points pertaining to the concept explained in that paragraph. Then go back and match appropriately. Look for the options. So for this question we're going to work with now in class, you will find that some of the questions have option A occurring more than once. So you have like option A being the answer for number 14, 16, 17. So you see, if you make the mistake of dealing with this question one at a time, trust me, you will end up reading an entire passage to get just one answer, which is pretty time consuming. too time consuming for the 1 hour you have to deal with the entire reading section of the IELTS. So come with me as I walk you through a practice test, right, with these approaches as I've outlined earlier. Now, with the question we have showing right on my screen now, see how the instruction comes. Questions 14 to 22, those are the questions we're dealing with. Classify, so you know. From saying the word classify, you're dealing with classifying information. Question type: classify the following as typical of A, representing the reptilian cortex, B, for the limbic cortex, C, the neocortex. And look at the instruction. Write the correct letter A, B, or C. So whatever characteristic you write A for, it means that characteristic belongs to what? The reptilian cortex. Whatever characteristic you write B for, it means that characteristic belongs to limbic cortex. Right? So, like I said, we are meant to do first, let us highlight our keywords, which are the subject, the verb, and the complementary part of each of the sentences or the questions, right? So let's delve right into it. Number 14 gives us giving up short-term happiness for future gains. So I will read the passage and we'll find this information. We'll find the cortex responsible for giving up short-term happiness for future gains. What are our keywords here? Future gains, right? The complementary part of the sentence, the idea of giving up, which is the verb. And then we have short-term happiness. So you see, now I will try to understand the possible way, try to imagine the possible way this can be rephrased. Giving up is a sacrifice to let go of something that is not long-term, a pleasure, satisfaction for something bigger in the future. So I've understood that perfectly now. 15, maintaining the bodily function necessary for life. Maintaining, that is keeping intact. And then we have necessary functions for life, bodily functions for life, right? 16, we have experiencing the pain. The word experience, to feel the pain, to express the pain, right? And then losing another. So you see, pain can be agony, sorrow, sadness. Forming community, that means establishing groups, social groups. So we have that too. Making a decision and carrying it out, that means sticking to a decision, sticking to a plan of action, and then committing to it, carrying it out. Very well. Guarding areas of land, protecting, defending land, defending territory, right? Probably against attack or against any sort of intrusion. Developing explanation, being able to explain, justify situations, things. Looking after one's young, caring for one's offspring. I want to see something that discusses parent and child relationship for that information. Responding quickly, responding rapidly, responding fast, reacting on impulse to noise and movement. So you see, I've gotten my keywords. Giving up short-term happiness, maintaining bodily functions, experiencing the pain of losing another, forming groups, carrying out a decision, defending an area of land, explaining things, looking after one's young, and responding quickly to sudden movement and noise. So I am going to the first paragraph now to look for any of these terms and find the characteristics mentioned in that paragraph for that term and come later to match up, right? So we write in the paragraph now showing on your screen. Obviously, that of the paragraph, the passage is triune brain. So you're thinking, oh, the three parts of the brain and the different functions, obviously. So you expect that one paragraph will discuss one particular function in detail, yeah? Yes. So we have here, the first of our three brains to evolve is what scientists called reptilian. So we've seen one term. So it means that this paragraph is going to discuss that term in detail. So we're looking out for all the characteristics of this term, reptilian cortex. Very well. And I often mention the fact that sometimes the first sentence is a topic sentence. It introduces the key idea of that paragraph, right? So for this sentence to go like this, it means that subsequently I'll find more information about reptilian cortex. That's how I know. if you were thinking how I figured out that this information is going to be all about reptilian cortex. Now, the brain sustains the elementary activities. This brain rather sustains the elementary activity of animal survival, such as respiration, adequate rest, and beating heart. This is pretty familiar. To highlight, that is a new characteristic. Elementary activities. I remember bodily functions for life, but let me get some more. The reptilian cortex also, that's an additional detail. Look at that transition also, right? Used to add in new information, right? How's the startle center? I wouldn't know what the word startle means. It means shock, surprise, right? And it was even explained further. I've often said that the IELTS has a way of explaining unfamiliar terms. So there's certainly no unfamiliar term you will find unexplained on the IELTS reading. So we have the startle center explained here, a mechanism that facilitates swift reaction to unexpected occurrences in our surroundings. That is pretty familiar as well. A new characteristic. Now that explains, this is what I mean by supporting detail, right? They're giving us explanation of what it means, of how this mechanism works. That panicked lurch you experience when a door slams shut somewhere in the house, or the heightened awareness you feel when a twig cracks in a nearby bush. So they are just explaining that startle center mechanism, right? Moving on, I'm looking for a new piece of detail. When it comes to our interaction with others, the reptilian brain offers up only the most basic impulses: aggression, mating, and territorial defense. That is also familiar. And then we have, there is no great difference in this sense between a crocodile defending the idea of defense as well, defending its spots. See what I mean by supporting detail? They explain that idea of territorial defense with the case of the crocodile, right? So we have three essential characteristics of the reptilian cortex here. Each is accompanied by supporting detail. This is a cue to borrow from when you're writing. Anyway, the writing task, the essay writing task, you want to master the art of introducing your key point and providing sufficient detail to explain it. Now, essentially, we have three characteristics, three features of the reptilian cortex. Now, we'll go back to the questions and look for the features. First of all, I saw elementary activities for survival. Secondly, I saw startle center, what is responsible for the instant reaction we give to unexpected events. And finally, we have territorial defense, right? So right into the questions now. So we'll look for the synonymous information. Obviously, option number 15 should go for A. Maintain the bodily function, C. And in the text, what do we have? We have elementary activities necessary for survival, maintaining the bodily functions necessary for life. You see how synonymous that is. So 15 is A. I'm looking for another one. We have guarding areas of land. Guarding, we saw the idea of territorial defense there with the example of the crocodile defending its spots, right? So guarding areas of land, the part of the brain responsible for that, option A, reptilian cortex. Finally, we have responding quickly, right? The panic lurch you feel when the door slams, the startle center. Remember that? So 22 is also A. So we see, easy peasy, we've gotten three answers just at once. How to tackle this question type when you have it, if you do have it on the test. Now, if you enjoyed what you just watched, you want to do me a little favor by liking this video and subscribing if you're new here, by the way, and then feel free to share to that friend, relative whom you know is preparing to take the IELTS pretty soon. They would really appreciate you for this. Now, like, meet you next time on another interesting and informative episode on the IELTS section, right? I hope you keep practicing and I wish you the very best on your test. Thank you.